Welcome to the AirCon Vault. Here you can find the recordings of the live streams from AirWiggle's audio conference. These are made free thanks to our sponsors: A Sound Effects, Aftertouch Audio, Room Library, Fmod, Game Audio Learning, Game Sound Con, Pillow Hearts, Rev Rooms, Sound Cuts, Strata from Audio Kinetic, and AirWiggles, the online home for audio people. We hope you enjoy the video.
Okay, let's go. So, hello. Hi, Thomas.
Hello, Helen. Hello,
Hi,
everyone. Hello.
Hi,
I'm
how's
grand.
things? Good. So, Thomas here. Thomas Hansen is a composer and music system designer from Glasgow who has worked on many AAA and indie projects. He has been instrumental in the creation of music systems on big video games, such as the Dark Pictures series by Supermassive Games, and is currently working on Mafia: The Old Country. Welcome, Thomas. Yay!
Hello. Thank you. I hate hearing things about myself, and let alone talking about myself even worse. But I don't deserve that. That was very flattering. Thank you, Helen.
You really do deserve it, let's be honest. I think we all hate about talking about ourselves, but then when you kind of hear it back, it's like, wait, I've done all those things. You know, it's
Factually, they're true.
Yes. Actually, they're true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lewis, sorry, that's another pun. Instrumental. Yeah. Okay, I'll probably come up with a third one sometime. Okay, so Thomas, how did you get into the world of music design?
I think, like a lot of people, I always just wanted to work in games. At one point, I didn't really care terribly much. Oh, stop, please. Sorry, just what Samantha said in the chat. That's very sweet, thank you. I said everyone around me wants to get involved in games in some sort of form or another when I was growing up. And I also played in bands. And then this sort of led me to touring around Scotland for a wee while. And then eventually I went to university, and becoming classically trained kind of came much later in life for me. I came from a touring and metal bands background, but then I went to the University of Glasgow and studied composition. And then I went to the University of Edinburgh and did a composition for screen course. And then from there, I then managed to blag an assistantship job, which is super old-fashioned, but I still think it's a possible route, even though a bit of a slightly old-fashioned and unusual one. An assistantship with another composer. And I've always given people the advice of, if you want to go down the assistantship route, message like another composer who's just way further on in their career than you happen to be, and think of all the crap things about being a composer and just list those, and at the very end say, I'll do those. And then you are way more likely to get like a response, like a meaningful response that might actually lead to somewhere. Because a lot of the time I got responses, I would do their emails, and I would get responses like, oh, I could ghostwrite for you, I could program these synths. That's the fun stuff. You know, no one wants to fall off the fun stuff. Everyone wants to fall off the stuff that's not very good. But even at that stage of your career, even doing the things that are sort of the menial work of a working studio in games, you actually learn I learned more in 2 weeks than I did 5 years at uni. And not because of any shortcoming of university, certainly not because of that. It's just because being in the working environment just completely changes the amount of inputs you're getting, of everything just being super raw and useful. And that was my first exposure to Audio Kinetics Wise. And then I came back home, and then I got recommended to do some music system design a couple of years ago for Supermassive Games. And I came down from Glasgow on a 3-month contract. That was about 8 years ago. And I've been hopping around doing it ever since then. Then the one thing about working in like a studio down south as well is sometimes some studios have high turnover. It's not because there's anything the matter with them, just because of the sort of the flows of the industry, and even right now, things like that. So I've ended up having a lot of friends who are like scattered throughout now. Then for like having a super niche job like doing music system design, all of a sudden it's actually a really useful way to get quite a few clients, is they're all old friends, basically.
Absolutely. I can totally resonate with you when you're saying, you know, the kind of the gap, which is no fault of its own, between university and the working world, because like I think it stands people in good stead to have a good foundation for what we need to do as music designers. But when you get into, you know, actually doing it for real, the commercial world is a different kind of ball game, really, isn't it? So
the one thing I would say is, hello, Mark. The one thing I would say is, you see, all your skills of composition and songwriting, they are all so useful. They're never not useful. It is so much easier to teach somebody the art and craft of music system design.
Yep.
Than teaching them to be a composer or a musician first. It's like it's so much easier to do them already to be composers and then do this. Because I've said this before to some sometimes sound designer friends as well, is the good thing about composers is they think of very musical solutions to musical problems in music system design, because I've seen a lot of sound designy solutions to musical problems, and some of the time that's fine, but a lot of the time I was never quite as satisfied with these as I was then with very musical solutions. And again, it's not because there's any sort of deficiency with sound designers. Sound designers are intimidatingly talented people that really scare me. But you see, it's just in virtue of our training as musicians and composers. We kind of help ourselves, but do that. So the thing is, if there was a very sound designy problem, we would probably think of a very musical solution to it. But that actually did come up. I got asked to do some sound design on one of the Dark Pictures games. And I said, my solutions to this are going to sound really musical, and I probably won't be able to help myself terribly much. And they said, actually, that's the reason why I'm asking you to do it. I was like, oh, okay. As long as we know what the output on this is going to be, then that's fine by me.
Definitely, absolutely, because there's something Sam brought up in her discussion. Something kind of similar about can you do both at once? It's worth a watch, so I'd recommend people watch that. So yeah, absolutely, musical solutions to musical problems all the way.
Yes.
Especially when your player is used to hearing a score and sound design as two kind of different things. Okay, they can be complementary as well, but it's good to have your specialist knowledge and your professional bias where applicable, I guess.
Well, that's also I think that also sort of leads you into this sort of very unique space in that. Oh, pardon me. Just got something in my throat. 2 seconds.
No, you take your time, right?
Because people sometimes ask me, other composers, like, oh, have you learned like programming and you've had to learn these other sort of like soft skills for or even like hard skills that involve kind of programming and things like that. And nope, I don't know a single line of code. I don't know a single line of code. But that's because in like big projects, everyone tends to specialize in a really narrow niche.
Yeah.
Like when I have a problem, like with say Unreal and Wise, all of a sudden the marriage between these two programs is kind of broken down a little bit and it's not quite working properly. I go and talk to an audio programmer. I stay in my lane. But I noticed that composers who work on indie projects, they tend to wear a lot more hats than I normally would. But for me, it's very much stay in my lane and worry about like narrative problems, worry about how to make the scene better. Don't worry too much about how to make some seriously difficult stuff under the hood work. Just go and talk to an audio programmer, which is a very different experience from an indie game, because in an indie game I might have to actually try and figure out myself because there's no budget, or it's just actually probably it's better for everybody involved if I actually just figure it out myself. But in AAA, the shoe's on the other foot. It's better for everyone involved if you just go and talk to the person whose responsibility that actually is.
Yeah, definitely.
So you end up getting this really sort of like laser focus on this one particular thing, and you start getting all these like lofty opinions about how you think is best done and things like that.
100%. Yeah, it's very good a good idea to, I suppose, leverage people that are in their specialist departments. Like audio programmers are, and I will say, the unsung heroes of the game audio world. They are fantastic.
They're angels.
Yeah, and producers, by the way.
Yes.
Absolutely. Okay, 1 second there now. Okay. How important is concepting or previs to you, and how long do you like to ideally spend playtesting?
If concept is important to you, if you don't want to flush a whole bunch of money down the pan, basically, if you don't want to do that, this is something I'm getting a lot more traction with when I'm talking to developers. If there's other people like in the chat who are like audio directors or people in audio lead positions, get someone like me on before you write a single note of music. There's absolutely no point in just throwing money at a problem, which is basically a score. Because until you have a score, it's like a problem until you figure it out. Don't throw any money at that until you have at least a roughly pretty good idea of the kind of system it's going to be existing in, because there's so many compositional opportunities. Like a game like I'll bring up this game because the audio kinetic video on it is just so good. At least I think so. Which is the Ghost of Tsushima video, which is just excellent. Very rare to have a video I think that good based on this very niche topic that everyone seems to want to know something about, because I certainly do. Like concepting on that, just getting a good idea of what the player can and cannot do, what they can expect, and how to accentuate that. That leads to a lot of really big structural musical choices, and it also leads to how many minutes you order. Because I've done some projects with 2 hours of music. I've done some with 25 minutes. But the thing is, the music with 25 minutes has been like really razor focused on getting the most out of it with the time that you have. And there's been times where I've gotten way more out of a score that's 20 minutes long than I have with one that's like 2 hours, because the 20 minute one was written in a very specific way in which to actually go to implement later, especially like a lot of my experiences in narrative games. And so you tend to have people, looking at a scene as they would like a film director would, because there's so many cinematics and things like that, or gameplay that's sort of like faux cinematics. Like the player is doing stuff, but it sort of is meant to feel as if you're watching like a film, and it should flow that sort of way. Having a score that works really for that purpose is like, unless you want to spend a hell of a lot of money on something that isn't going to work in the end, then get someone like us in very early, even if it's just consulting and just talking, about what opportunities are there, what are the pitfalls, and how to apply that to the music composition process, and then how to apply that to the editing and implementation process. Like, for example, now I don't write a single note of music until I've basically mostly figured out how I'm going to implement it, just because it has so many knock-on effects about what you can and cannot write.
Definitely,
like,
and if you, sorry, after you.
No. So I was just going to say, like, you wouldn't deliver like. There must be some game where this works. I can't think of one on the top of my head where like a single wave file of like a Baroque concerto would work. Yet that would the kind of projects I work on, that would be kind of a disaster. But if all of a sudden you get like this stemmed, like heavily stemmed. But I've said this to my advice for composers. One of the reasons why working in games is so fun is because you get to be very indiscriminate with your ideas. Like, when I'm writing for something or I'm doing requests from other composers for things, it's like, do like 6 cello lines. Don't worry about like, oh, you think that one's really cool, and then you don't need to abandon it. It isn't film. You can do what you want. Put 6 down. You want 12 pads? Fine, go for it. Fine by me, Buttercup. But throw down as many as you possibly can. You do not need to discriminate between your ideas that much, and that's one of the reasons why like from a composer's point of view, is I really do prefer working in games, because there's so many things I'd like to do on a project. I'm like, I didn't get to do that, I didn't get to do this. But in games, you really can just throw stuff at the wall and it's totally fine. And I have noticed that game developers tend to be way more willing to indulge your sillier ideas, like way more willing to indulge. Because another thing that I prefer about games to some of the film work I've done is you're in the trenches the entire time, like with everyone. And I think that breeds such a great camaraderie between you all. And that's very hard to go back from after you've had it once. So I've not wanted to give it up. It's too interesting. I don't really like playing therapist/composer to a director who's emotionally destroyed from writing, casting, shooting, editing, and color grading their work.
Dear.
Because then I'm always just a bit like, it is fun, like, and everything, but you almost feel like they're dealing with like a house of cards. But with game development, you are in the trenches with everyone else, just trying to figure it out together, and that's super alluring. It's really hard to go back from that. It's too fun.
There's something here that there's a person in the chat who's new to the industry. This leads into my next question, actually. They were wondering what did I mean by concepting. So let's lead into that with the idea of what a music design document is, Thomas. Can you expand a bit on that and what you would like to input into that and why it's important to kind of have an idea before you go into work?
Well, the first thing is figuring out what the player's able to do, what are the mechanics of the game, and then basically applying that to structurally, how would you get the most music? How would it be flexible and editable? Because you're basically performing major surgery on the music every single day, and it has to survive. Not just survive, but sound good and do well. I'll give an example of this. Because I've done a lot of horror games before, and I'll give horror as like a genre because there's very specific sort of genre conventions that suit certain styles of music. So if I was doing like a game, like a horror game, a lot of the things that I would say is you don't really need to necessarily worry about quantizing or doing things to be too strict. Be quite loosey goosey. It's fine because horror allows you to get away with one of the most howlingly unmusical things, which is an immediate transition. Like an immediate, and wise you can have on bar, you can have on beat, or you can have immediate, and immediates are extremely unmusical. But the thing is about horror, actually, it'd be really silly not to do that in horror. So here's this one tool that you have all the time that if you're doing tonal music. Try to think of a game that might sort of like, that might not be, maybe something like Hades, which is contemporary music, but it is sort of contemporary music, but it does sort of, I don't think it would apply very well to things like immediate transitions. I think keeping it on the beat or on bar actually probably suits the game and the music like a lot better. But in horror, you can just immediate transition left, right, and center, and it's totally fine because you're doing like horrible aleatoric and atonal music like the entire time. And so that genre convention suits that music, and it suits that genre of game as well. But if you're doing something that was like incredibly tonal, I'd go back to Ghost of Tsushima or maybe anything of that type of game. I've been playing the Oblivion remaster recently, and a game like that, even though the game's like 20 years old, it still tries to do as smooth as transitions as possible, even though it's they didn't have access to the kind of tools that we have now. They still try and hide it as best as possible.
Is that Oblivion, is it?
Yeah, that was a remaster for Oblivion. Yeah.
Just to interject that some of the audio team were actually in Dublin for that, so that's win for Ireland right there.
It's like playing a dream, a wonderful, pleasant dream.
It's fantastic. All right, let's see. Okay, so this is where we get into the more kind of slightly meatier questions, if you're okay with that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, if time allows and you don't encounter scope creep, one of our favorite words, do you prefer to serve the story as best you can, or try to subtly put in some nerdy music design and interactive goodness that only you know is there? So, like, do you like to completely make sure the story is solid, or do you want to try and keep yourself interested by putting in little bits to keep you going?
Well, I think the crux of that was what was the first sentence? If time allows.
If time allows, yeah, and you don't expect
it never does. Time never. So I kind of try to do these things sort of like on the fly because time never allows. Like ever. I'm just trying to think of anything that I can talk about. There's always like lots of nods or things that happen. Like, see when you get given like a ton of music, or even not so much, but it's very sort of densely stemmed out, which is great. Yeah. Which actually does translate to a ton of music, I would say. You do sometimes find things in the narrative, like in Man and Medan, the first Dark Pictures game. A particular item of a ship engine or boat engine, a distributor cap, becomes a really important item for the story. And there's a sort of small motif that goes along with that, but we didn't really have any sort of like music or anything or textures that really kind of applied to that. We just kind of did something and it sort of stuck. And then throughout the entire game, making sure that motif was there and going and things like that. But again, because it's horror, I think you can lean on musical texture a bit more than you would say like when I look at like very sort of heavy narrative games, but like I'm trying to think. Even like my wife was playing Tomb Raider recently, and there's a theme that goes with Lara. There's a theme. There is a musical theme. It's a series of notes and a melody and a chord progressions. That's a bit more structured and a bit more obvious. But in that kind of game, I think you can probably even new team where you probably could get away being a bit more textual with things. But and you're relying on like a theme. The scope for that, I think, is a bit tighter. As long as you have really thick amount of stems and you can instrument this all a bit differently, I think you can sort of stay on point. At least I think so.
100%, absolutely. And it's, the team is the thing, isn't it? Pretty much. Oh my goodness. Do you like to stick to the music hierarchy in your middleware of choice, or do you like to dip into the sound design area of things too?
I have no idea what the hell is going on in the rest of Wise. I have no idea. And you know what? I don't want to know. I'm in the music hierarchy, and you see when you're on a really big team, I would say more than 6 people is big, like a big team. But I'm usually on teams of 8 or 12. And when you're working with the other sort of like mechanic of game development, which is version control, so like Perforce, and Unreal Game Sync and stuff like that, there's a really big incentive there to not really touch things you don't 100% have a responsibility over.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Samantha. That's very sweet. Thank you. Well, I think I'd rather sort of be honest about this thing. I don't like kind of pretend I am some sort of wise master. Like I'm not. Like I understand the music hierarchy. I understand. I think I understand its limitations, and I think I understand how to get most musical things, most of my musical ideas out of it in one form or another, at least sort of. I think so anyway. But the other parts of Wise, like the actor mixer, no. I do not touch that with a 10-foot barge pole. I wouldn't claim to even understand it beyond a pedestrian level. The master mixer, I do know a little bit about that, but that's just because that's where everything ultimately ends up getting bussed. All sound ends up getting bussed to that in one form or another eventually anyway. So sometimes I might poodle in there, but normally what I've noticed, at least in my experience, is, and for Wise, I'm not quite sure how I haven't shipped a game with Fmod before, so I won't speak for Fmod. But usually the master at the top, master mixer, is usually the purview of the audio director, and I wouldn't really want to step on those toes.
Absolutely, yeah. It's no, I totally understand, and I can't say more than that. I can just resonate with it that way.
Yeah, because I'm a freelancer, so these people are my clients, and my job is to distill my job down is to make their lives easier.
Definitely.
And it's like, because if they have like a very talented sound designer, the last thing they really want to make them spend their time doing is doing a music system, because someone like you and I and another composer who just happens to know a bit about the craft of doing this will do a better job than a much more experienced sound designer. Again, not because there's something lacking with sound designers. There's not. It's purely in virtue of our training. Like that is all. And plus, talking to audio director friends, they're like most talented sound designers. They got better things to do on a project. They have like a whole bunch of stuff that's like not done, and the game's 3 weeks away from Perforce locking, and I know does that send a shiver down your spine? So they've got better things to do. But the one thing I also sort of want to make clear is, I'm trying to make so many things clear for the time that we have.
Okay, yeah.
Is that I think under the age of maybe 50 or 45, it's kind of inexcusable for a composer not to know how the craft of well, not inexcusable is too harsh a word. It's difficult, maybe impractical for working in this business, for not knowing at least a little bit about the art and craft of music system design and music implementation. The really difficult part about that is it is so hard to find really good information about this particular job. It is really, really hard. I mean, I'm someone who does it most of the time, and I really struggle with finding really good information. So if you're here, like in the chat at the moment, and you're thinking, how do I learn music system design? I'm asking myself the same question too. It's really hard.
Yeah, you never
But
stop learning really with this. So like it's your best resources are the people around you really, because it's every system is different as well, and not every manual or document is going to tell you how to do everything. So yeah.
exactly, and also because Audiokinetic is from Montreal, their documentation in French is slightly more extensive than it is in English. So it's like if you're French, and you speak French and you can read French, you actually might get a little bit more from the documentation, which is great.
Hot tip, everybody, go learn French.
Go and learn a wee bit of French. Because,
oh my god, yeah, definitely.
The thing, but you are right though. One of the resources I've leaned on the most is really good friends who just happen to know a little bit more than me. That's been really, really helpful. But again, it's so hard to find information on this. I mentioned Ghost of Tsushima earlier and the video they have on the Autokinetic website, on the YouTube, sorry, but I think it's on the Autokinetic YouTube channel. That one video is actually, I think, still one of the best resources for just getting a window into the mindset of what you're trying to achieve and why it's so important. And I loved that game, and I thought the music was very well written, and I thought it was implemented just as well. It's an absolute
great job.
banger. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm so glad I have friends who know more about Wise than me. We all have different experiences in Wise, Annie. I mean, like there's a lot of people in the chat here who know something I wouldn't, even though I work in it every single day.
Exactly. Yeah, same.
Yeah, so best resources, the network you build around yourself. So lots of things to take away from it already.
Oh hey man, it's not a GDC talk. It's on the Audiokinetic YouTube channel, and I think it was like it splits up into 3 bits. I think the first bit is dialogue, which I skipped past because I don't know enough about that to really take it in. And the middle part is music, and the last part I think was the mix. I think, but it is on YouTube, and I think it's the Audiokinetic YouTube channel that did it.
Definitely their Wise Up program. How old am I? Their Wise Up series on YouTube. I know I'm showing my age here. Their Wise Up series on YouTube is fantastic. Not biased at all, but no, they're great, and they upload pretty frequently. Okay, so how do you keep interactive scores feeling natural and expressive instead of repetitive?
Well, one of the things I hate is looping music. I hate it. I try and avoid. I think it's way too 1995. I like to think we're past that. I like to think we're past this. There actually are a couple of old things that are really, really helpful. I hate music looping. None of my favorite music loops. I've said some people actually here. I've said this exact sentence before. Is one of my favorite pieces of music is Steve Reich's music for 18 musicians, which is a very repetitious, not repetitive, repetitious piece of music. Even that has a start, middle, and an end.
Yeah.
So I usually resort to looping the same piece of music if there's usually a technical reason why. Like, I don't know, you're in the middle of like an action sequence, and then there's a moment where the player can maybe do vastly different choices, and I might hold the music at that point. And the way to do that is just to loop it. But I try and avoid looping as much as possible, because I don't think. I genuinely believe we're trying to make games work for music, not the other way around. I don't think. Steve Reich fans, excellent. I think. What's the difference between repetitious and repetitive? I usually say repetitive is annoying. Like it's something happening constantly over and over again. But repetitious would be like. John Williams's Indiana Jones theme. It's actually, you look down on paper, it's actually almost the same thing over and over and over again, but it's repetitious but not repetitive.
Yep.
That's probably how I would describe it. John Williams is very good at being repetitious, extremely good at it.
But he changes something when it comes back around every time, so he's
always doing wee adjustments. It's I wish I was as good as writing those as he was. I'm sure we all do. Wish we were as good as him. Where was I? I started talking. Looping music. Try and avoid it as much as I possibly can. But I'm very lucky in that I tend to work in a lot of narrative games. I don't tend to work in games where those sort of the fences are sort of closing in on you a little bit. Like, see, if I was playing, like I brought this up earlier, if I was playing like Hades, I think the music would have to loop or you have to write a heck of a lot more music. But I kind of think probably looping is the best option there, but just using different techniques to bring in different stems every now and then. One purely for musicality, another purely for gameplay considerations, like in Hades when you're fighting one of the bosses. Their health, your health, how much time has passed. Those are all very interesting considerations, but also just having like some sort of musicality is I think it's just really, really important. And I know there's I know it's, by the way, if someone wants to type in like in chat, well, Thomas, you got no much choice but to lip it all the time. I know that. I'm not. I know I can't escape. I don't worry. I know I'll never reach escape velocity on that. And it's true. That would be a totally fair criticism of me. It really would. I still try my best to avoid it as much as I possibly can. And also randomization. I don't like randomization one bit. I try my best to avoid randomization as much as I possibly can, because I think I just think it, for me, every time I've done this amazing system that involved randomized elements, somehow when I press play, I just was never happy with it, like ever. And when I started doing things structurally, a bit more like in Wise, it's called sequence tracks, where it basically functions like a small playlist, like going 1, 2, like doing odd and even sequences and things like that, actually with different stems. I actually thought it ended up being a bit more satisfying. At least that was the feeling it gave me. Maybe the end product you wouldn't necessarily be able to tell, but it's very hard to play a game you worked on because all you can do is see the scaffolding holding the whole thing up, and you're terrified. I don't know, just that one bug you thought was gone was going to come back, and then it's over. And, it's very scary for me anyway, playing a game that you worked on, because they all tend to be really big projects with so many moving parts. It's so difficult to sort of get to grips with it as a full picture. I'm not even sure necessarily everyone can know everything about a AAA project. They're just too big and too complicated, and there's just too much nuance basically constantly.
Yeah, no, it's true. And sometimes things are held together with duct tape and a prayer, really, isn't it?
Oh, God.
Let me see. How do you ensure that the compositions are both musically intricate but optimized for the game?
You say optimized. Do we mean optimize in a technical sense or optimize in like a creative sense? Because optimizing in like a technical sense, I just kind of throw stuff in until someone says stop.
It's probably the best way to do it, because a deadline helps, doesn't it?
Well, deadline very much helps. But the one thing is, though, I don't need to worry about that too much in 2025, because the technology's moved on like much better. Like PS5's SSD has been very helpful. But before, you used to sort of get, even a couple of years ago for me, you also sort of had like roundtable discussions about how resources were getting divided up. But that's not really so much of a problem, at least I've found anymore. If you're doing something for like Xbox or PC, if it's a release that's in the current generation, then honestly, I think the optimizing is mostly fine in audio, at least in music. I know there's a couple of things you should do, like making sure it gets like reduced down to like Vorbis or something, like doing something like that, where for when it actually goes to the game. So the file size is really small and it's lossless and it sounds fine. It's not my preferred file format, but it sounds fine. It's okay. Optimizing, to be honest, when I just try and get as much as a budget will allow me. Like I keep asking for more and more and more, and it's never enough. Just keep getting more and as much as you possibly can, because if you have like sometimes you do hold some budget back. Because you're like, I'm not quite sure how this part of the game is going to play out. This character might actually be good or they might be bad. We've actually not quite figured this bit out yet. It's like, okay, we'll just save 4 minutes for like the end or something, and then ask for something then. And plus, I think it's kind of nice for the composer to still be involved and not like they just cut a card and walked away and watched the game just be made over the course of a year and a half.
And I think one of the biggest skills we can have as music designers, maybe composers too, is whatever we get to work with, we can be as kind of resourceful and economical as possible. So I'm all for music editing where you need to and that kind of thing. So
hell yeah.
Excellent. One bit mono. Thanks, Daniel. Oh my goodness, yeah, definitely. That's the other thing is like as even in the past 10 years, like the compression algorithms and such are very sophisticated now. So I don't think space is too much of an issue as it used to be.
It's fine. It's fine. You know, it's not. It's certainly not something I'm going to die on the hill about. It's totally fine.
Sure, and if it's too big, we could just take out some sound design, right? So.
Exactly.
What a kidding. Okay, so outside of your own systems, are there any games which have been inspiring to you as an exemplar of highly effective music design, and why?
Well, it goes to Tsushima. I think they got the marriage between the two just so good.
Yes.
I can't remember the name of the people involved, but I think it's because they all worked in the West Coast in America, so it's not people I typically encounter at the pub, basically. Ghost of Tsushima is just so good. They really, really nailed that. Hades, of course, was great. Darren Croft's score was fantastic, and it's been very, very considerately implemented. That was very, very, very good. I'm trying to think of anything I've been playing recently. I don't think I should mention Oblivion because it still runs the same sort of 20-year-old way, but it doesn't well. Let's see, anything on the Audio Kinetic YouTube channel, to be perfectly honest. I've always wanted to look at the Warhammer Total War Y sessions. I have no idea what that thing looks like, but that's one Y session I think I would really love to just spend like a week like digging through, because I feel all the considerations for that game were all very musical.
Yep.
They weren't. I always thought that one of the most intelligent pieces of music implementation was. This is long before I had a job doing this, but I just found it so inspiring. It's Shogun. I think it's Shogun 2 Total War, which came out like, oh dear God, like 20 years ago. I was playing that, and when you have a battle, you have an army of your own samurai, and then it goes like bung, and then you're in the sort of battle space. And all you can hear, if you zoom into your soldiers, all you can hear is that their flags flapping, a bit of foley on their like armor and things like that, but total silence. And then when you highlight your soldiers and click move, then the music starts. That was so clever. I thought that's such a simple but amazingly effective thing to do. Also, in Battlefield 1, sorry for spoilers. It's just kind of
don't apologize. It's been in a while.
The Battlefield 1 as well is another one that was excellent, and because they managed to wrap that up with the gameplay so well. Like when I was playing that in multiplayer, I know it would be maybe the done thing. To turn off music in a multiplayer shooter, but actually you'd be pretty daft to do that in Battlefield 1, because whenever you sort of captured like a flag or you reached an objective, and I can't remember what that mode was called, but you can go from one, when you got two objectives, you then move to the next one and the next one, and there was always this wonderful musical stinger that really made you feel like you were pushing forward heroically or desperately, like you would, but it gave you really good information about what was actually happening, because that let you know as soon as the cadence, came to this unresolved state, it pushed you forward. And like musically, it did that really, really, really well. So you'd be for a multiplayer shooter, you would be crazy to turn the music off, like really, really, really crazy. That was just that was really effective and very emotional, actually quite emotional. Like Battlefield 1's a weirdly emotional game. That was one of the most effective ways I've seen that done, because again, it is the one genre of game and the one style of game. You probably would have turned the music off because you would have thought you were being competitive, but it actually leaked into the competitiveness of it. Oh, Age of Empires is excellent as well. Very well.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you brought up the Battlefield series, because there is a paper, if people like to read, that discusses the game audio design of one of the games. So if anybody's interested in reading that, please let me know and I'll link you to it. If I can find it in the middle of the Q&A, I'll put it in the chat, but if not, contact me on AirWiggles. And I'm loving all the love people are having for certain games here. It's amazing. Okay, so are there any tips you'd recommend for those getting into designing their own music systems?
I actually do think the Audio Kinetic, I think it's called the 202 now. They do it's a music course called 201. Sorry, I think.
Yeah, 201,
that even though even though it was made quite a while ago, I still actually think that's a really good introduction. But when you go into like a AAA project, it's still going to be incredibly like intimidating and a bit of a sort of finding how everything works exercise. But the thing is, Wise, every single company I've worked for, their Wise and engine, especially Unreal, have been completely different. Like to the point of like, well, I know how Unreal opens and I know how Wise opens. And I know that things sort of mean this and that every now and then, but that's pretty much as far as it goes because it's so proprietary what every single company does to these two pieces of software that I usually sort of factor in like just at least a couple of days of just trying to like understand the way they landed on doing things, like the way you sort of check things out, the way you check things in, the sort of the way they like things to be organized, or the sort of weird sort of foibles that you have to sort of go with the flow over, because that's just the way things have been. And no one's had any time to fix it or change it. That happens an awful lot. So the Wise 201 is for learning Wise anyway. Is really good for understanding that sort of thing. And I think at the very end, just prepare yourself for the fact that this is just giving me a base level because it really can't go any further because every single big project, the sessions are so wildly different and complicated that they kind of can't give you any more information. Be comfortable with the idea of saying, give me a couple of days just to look through your Wise session and figure out how you've done things. I might have some questions, but I'll get there in the end. Like really, that's totally fine. It would be weird if you didn't say that. And you just turned up and understood how this Wise session, which is probably like an inherited one that's 10 years old, sort of technically, and it's full of weird buses and choices that were made long before anyone else got there.
Inheriting a project is something, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. So with that in mind, actually, now think of it, do you have any, can you expand upon what are the difficult parts of being a music designer?
Well, I enjoy the challenge of them. I don't necessarily think I would characterize them as difficult. They're challenging, but
challenging.
I tend to find difficult things are things I don't want to do. The challenging things are things I do want to do.
Yeah.
I think at the moment this is becoming less of a problem. It's just convincing. It's just convincing people that you need them way earlier on than they think they need you. Like you really need to be involved before any music is written, and sometimes you get pulled in after, and it's like, well, it's like I probably should have been here before, or just talk to me for like a month beforehand, and then I'll see you, toodaloo the new for a year, and I'll see you after that.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. It just get involved way earlier because I have seen like eye-wateringly expensive mistakes reasonably frequently, but it's becoming less frequent, but it's still a bit of a problem. But also, if you're a composer, being able to offer that as a service is such a string to your bow. It really, really is. I was in like a pitching process like a while ago. It was for a AAA game. But then the game didn't go. The whole project didn't go ahead, and there was like 20 composers all sort of throwing their hats in the ring and things like that. And I was talking to the director for it, and he said, Thomas, like the 20 people who like put their hat in the ring, only 2 of them said that they would do the whole pipeline, and you were one of them. And the amount of extra weight that means you can throw around, in that process is you are way more desirable. If you say, look, I'll implement it and design the system and everything too.
Mm-hmm.
And for writing music, you of course have your per minute rate that you probably charge. But for music system design, it's usually a day rate.
Yeah.
And then you just do that and just say, look, we'll just switch from this to that. And if we need any other music, then you can always just per minute me again, like afterwards.
Absolutely, sorry, continue.
No. It's you see, like, I see composers who have been here for a long time, and you get work relatively consistently. They don't really need to offer that. No one's like I'm trying to think of like a blockbuster composer, like Brian Tyler, who did like Marvel films and like Marvel. I think he did some Marvel games and stuff too. Like no one's hiring Brian because he does music system design. They're hiring him because he writes great music.
Yeah.
And he writes great blockbuster music. But that's because he's part of the generation that's further ahead than us. But you see, for us, I think there's a lot more scope for. You're much more likely to get a gig if you can say, "I'll do all the technical stuff too." You're just so much more likely, because again, it's like what I said earlier. An audio director can say, I don't need to commit a sound designer to this who's expensive and frankly has better things to do. You could just do it. It works out way better. I wouldn't honestly. It's a struggle to survive as a composer unless you have other strings to your bow, unless there's other things you can do. And with music system design, you get to indulge in all the fun parts of game development, and you still get to be involved in music. And plus, you're a composer. You're just naturally going to be a bit better at it than everyone else is going to be.
And with that in mind, actually, something that comes to my mind, this is totally not in the script. Do you think composers should have their own in their department, their own music designers, or do you think they're better off being on the dev side?
I think either, to be honest. If there was like a composer whose music I was reasonably familiar with, asked me, "Hey, I'm going in this project, but I like the idea of talking to you and doing this." I'm like, okay, fine. But then that kind of gets into, well, who's my client then in that case? Then you have to start double checking, because maybe a game developer might not be too happy that I'm not actually their client in a sense, and they're not my client in a sense, but the composer is maybe. I'm not too sure. Some people get uncomfortable about things you don't quite expect at times, especially when things like contracts and day rates and per minutes and all this other legal stuff that I don't understand, isn't it? Start getting involved in. I have been recommended by other composers before, but I think the idea of a composer music designer team, actually, I think that's a cool idea. And I think you can offer that, especially if you're like an older composer, like in a generation above us, who's like, oh crap, I really like these projects, I really want to get involved in them, but I'm not going to do the music design stuff because I'm not particularly interested. I'll get someone who basically just I can offer to do that with, and all of a sudden that number of 2 in that 20 pool all of a sudden is 3, and all of a sudden you stick out a bit more, which is exactly what you want.
Makes sense, absolutely. We're going to go to Q&A in a sec. Are you okay for playing, Thomas? Or?
Yeah, grand, absolutely grand.
Just one thing I forgot to mention, we kind of touched on FMod, by the way, loads of documentation. Their documentation is fantastic, very easy to follow. Wise has a load of visual resources as well. They both do, to be fair. But Christopher from Elias Software is in the chat, actually. I think he's still here. If he is, fantastic. But that middleware I'm also very interested in having a look at some point. So yeah, I mean, there's loads of ways to do something, guys. Just pick one that suits and that you gel with, and off you go. Yeah. I
completely agree. I only brought up Wise because it's just what I happen to have the most experience in. If mod, it's not because of any sort of weird sort of artistic grievance or anything like that. So it's not that. It's just purely a lack of experience on my part.
It's the tool that you're used to, and that's okay. It's speaking a language, I guess, isn't it? So we should all go learn French. That's basically our other takeaway.
Yes. For Wise, go and learn a wee bit of French, because the documentation seems to be more extensive than French.
Absolutely. So Q&A time, guys. Woohoo! Let's have a look. Okay, so I'm going to go from the bottom up. So Isan asks, how would you go about designing a system for procedurally generated music that sounds musically coherent, satisfying, and also responsive to gameplay events? Now, that's like a whole talk in itself, but let's see what we can do.
It is. I mean, I've been listening to some generative style music and some software recently, and so far it's been like an interesting sort of experiment. But I'm like, for the projects I work on, I'm not actually sure where this would work. Like, I do a lot of narrative games, and a lot of the time there's like narrative considerations So if say like a player goes into a cutscene and then comes out of that scene, I'll normally have music last for about 2 minutes if they're going into open gameplay, and it'll just naturally go down by itself.
Yep.
And also, this is the bit of a difference between maybe silence and nothing. Nothing is like there's actually nothing. There's no sound. Silence, I would say, is just no music. I always like to make space for things like Foley, SFX, dialogue, murmurs like in the background.
Yep.
So at the moment, I've seen some stuff where I would say it's for procedurally generated music. Oh, maybe I misunderstood you slightly, because I was talking about procedural systems for music. But I think maybe you might mean music that has been procedurally generated.
Yes.
If so, my answer is actually not that much different. I haven't actually found a situation, at least of the projects I've worked on, that I could find a use for it. But that's only because of there's such narratively heavy games with such like musical themes and textures, very very tied to themes, events, characters, things like that. So again, not found much for use for that. And as for a procedural system, I've seen some really cool systems that I just currently at the moment can't find a use for, at least in the projects I've worked on. But if it's like an open world game or like a huge like game, maybe you have more use there. But I'm not saying that there's no use for them. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm certainly not saying that at all. I'm just saying that for the narrative games I've worked on, it's a shoe that's not quite fitting yet. But my mind is open. Totally happy to keep trying until maybe it does.
Fantastic, excellent. Next question, I'm going to word slightly differently, and I'm not going to spotlight it if it's okay because it's just the way it's worded. So how do you compose music that's meant to back up a depressing narrative without it being so bleak that after an hour of gameplay, the player basically quits the game because the music's too heavy? So I'm not talking about cinematic scenes, more like exploratory background music, for example.
I was playing a game recently I am so into, but I won't name because I have some feedback, shall we say, for the music. There's a lot of the music's great. The music is objectively fantastic in this game. I would just say someone's being dishonest if they said that wasn't the case. I very much think that is the case. But it is an RPG, and you're walking around an awful lot. But the music is sort of relentlessly percussive.
Yeah.
Especially when you're doing things that aren't really shouldn't really have percussion, like taiko drums underscoring them. I think sometimes just pads or something ethereal would work a lot better in that. So I had to actually turn the music off in the game because I kind of thought this music is really cool. It just feels a bit relentless. So when you say composing for a depressing narrative, actually I'm not necessarily. I think I see where you're coming from with the way that's worded. I think as long as there's a very happy marriage between the gameplay, all the other audio disciplines, and you can actually sit quite happily. Because there's times where I've seen this music is just so overwhelming. It's like pushing out like amazing sound design. It's pushing out amazing SFX. And again, you're in the as I said before, you're in the trenches with people. So you have a time and a place for different audio disciplines to have their moments, and a lot of the time you're having your moment in music by just gently. I think this works most of the time. Gently pushing a sort of a tone with your music, just a feeling, a slight chord progression, just something subtle, and that keeps things moving and is marrying quite well to all the other audio disciplines around you: SFX, Foley, dialogue, ambience. You need to, if you're in a game where there's somebody working just on ambiences, you really need to be having discussions with them basically all the time, all the time, because there's only so much room in the audio spectrum. Like if you listen to the music on in some of the games, I like just sold the music in some of the games I've done. You can see the music will be like going full pelt and just all of a sudden go and get completely out of the way because something else, like I don't know, explosion or a character being stabbed or something horror. Sorry, actually, that those sounds lead to that moment like a lot better. So it's best you just get out of the way. And then there's been times I've said, everybody, I kind of think the music should lead this moment, because not because of any sort of reasons outside of, I thought it was what's best for the scene. And that was just like my opinion at the time.
Yeah.
And most of the time, people are willing to hear it and give it a try and see if I was right or see if I was wrong. It's okay either way.
I think, when you're discussing a new project with someone, seeing how receptive they are in the discussion stage will really tell you a lot about what they're going to be like to work with. So it's definitely important to find someone who can be receptive to ideas as a creative person. Yeah.
One of the most valuable things you can have be a creative in a team is being able to give your feedback in a generous, empathetic, and good faith way.
Mm-hmm.
And also being able to take feedback gracefully.
Yes.
Those are the two most important things. And I always assume someone has done something in good faith. I'll say, yeah, I can see why you've done that. Maybe just try doing something like this here or that here. Or someone will say, oh, Thomas, I don't think that particular music is working here. And I go, okay, right, fair enough. This is purely taste. Everything here is down to taste.
Absolutely.
It's okay to. It's okay to do that, because I remember going into like small audio suites where there was like 6 of us and we're all picking each other's work apart for like an hour and a half, and then we came out afterwards, still as good of friends as when we went in, like probably better.
Yeah, definitely. And it's feedback is important, and something they keep instilling on it to my mentees and students is you're like, as a composer, or maybe as a music designer as well, but as a composer, you're not there to save the day. You're there to serve what's going on in the game or the story that you're working with. So you need to kind of, like you were saying, be gracious enough to feedback and work collaboratively with all the other audio disciplines that you work with. So.
But I usually use the word massage.
Massage.
Massage. Like the music can massage a scene. But
oh my God, yes.
But it can't fix a dodgy edit. It can't fix a weird color grade. It can't fix the camera flying off 100 miles off screen. Music can just massage a moment.
It won't fix your T-pose, put it that way.
There's no amount of music that will fix any amount of T-poses.
T-poses,
yeah.
Oh my goodness, yeah, definitely. Unfortunately, but it'd be great if it did. Yes. Daniel here, I had a little look ahead at what he linked here. For someone going from linear to interactive composition, would the following workflow from Spitfire still be applicable, or is it a very different experience to be expected? And to be fair, Daniel, you're like what you just linked is pretty much what my workflow looks like. It's important. It's important to have like for music design to have like a bi-directional workflow and to be able to take every scenario into account for the player, I guess. But Thomas, what do you think?
This scares me.
Yeah. Nightmare fuel, yeah.
This is nightmare fuel. Is this what I do? I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, I don't think this is what I do.
Well, not necessarily the items, but like as crazy as the flowcharts can get, put that way.
Probably, yeah. And what I would say is, from my perspective and from the work I've done, this looks very intimidating. Like, this is way more intimidating than what I do on a daily basis. Like, it's just
I realize anybody watching this back won't know what we're looking at, but basically, if you look for Spitfire Audio in your Google and type in film music workflow.jpg, you would probably find it. So, it's a bit like props to the person who actually made this, put it that way. Oh my goodness. I think they had a lot of time.
Honestly, I think I would actually take most of this out and just have I have composer and music editor as 2 separate things.
Yeah.
And then I just have audio director, bang. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Yeah.
Because one of the things you do have to slightly be conscious of is everyone is going to have an opinion on your work on the entire team. There could be hundreds of people. They're all going to have an opinion on your work. Mm-hmm. And never ever respond, sort of with hostility to that. Just always listen and be considerate, and be kind and graceful to their opinion. We always have to remember is there's probably only 2 people's opinions that have any actual effect on what you do, and that's the audio director and the game director usually. Yep. Everyone else's opinion is lovely, and it is nice to hear, even when it's not something you were expecting. It could be bad. Even then, it's like, well, be kind and graceful even if it's maybe not necessarily what you were prepared to hear. Just be sympathetic and good faith, because it's probably been delivered to you in good faith anyway.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
always keep in mind there's only two people who can actually ask you to change things. And the problem is, because everyone does have an opinion on music, and they should. I think everyone's opinion is equally valid.
Mm.
The problem is in game development, you need to basically only act upon what one or two people say, and it needs to be clear what two people or one person this actually is. Otherwise, you start getting into scenarios where you're doing changes and everyone gets confused, and it's all just it's a dictatorship. Basically, it is a dictatorship, and you
Definitely,
just
and it's one of those things where don't like people please, because it's you're not gonna, like, even if you try your hardest, you're not gonna please everybody.
no, it's and you shouldn't try. You
Yeah.
know, unfortunately, you can be in situations sometimes where the director loves what you've done and everyone else is into it, but that honestly that's it's that person's vision. You're usually there to execute in some form or another, and that's fine. And try not to get your own feelings wrapped up in it at all. It's just like, I was saying earlier. Oh yeah, Tim say composing music for commercials back in the day. You learn to grow a thick skin. That is a very good thing to have.
I don't miss composing for commercials, because I used to get woken up at like 2 a.m. saying this person needs a revision, and you'd have no sleep. So it's very, very hardcore form of media composition. My goodness.
You're not selling it for me. You're not selling it at all.
And TV is very hardcore as well. But Noah, when the music enters the recording phase, do you always try to split it into stems as much as possible? Is there ever a reason to not split an orchestra into stems, for example?
Stem. I love a god. Stem as much as you possibly can. Be granular. It's totally fine. Just keep go. Anything that gives me or Helen more choice later is really what matters.
Please.
Just more stems. I know in like orchestral recordings, you can kind of get into sort of strange scenarios where like a mic is picking up something else somewhere, like on the other side of the room, or like someone's bow accidentally hits something, or like someone picks something up. You can hear it. I know there's oddities like that, but honestly, I've managed to work with those oddities in an edit pretty simply. And most of the time, when you actually put it in the game, when it's actually being mixed with everything else, it's actually usually sat kind of fine. I've honestly not gotten too worried about it. It's a bit like oh sorry, the Spunda Patrick gif. Oh, that really speaks to me, Samantha.
I love this so much.
But the thing is, this is like I think is really good advice is you don't really. I think orchestral samples are really good now. I think if you have a project though, decide if it's going to be a real orchestra or a VST one, and don't try and mix it afterwards. Just kind of hold your guns and like stick with it. If you're doing live musicians, just do live musicians. But if you're doing stuff that you're recording in your studio with some synths and things like that, with the occasional soloist, just stick with that, because it sounds weird when you go from like a live orchestra to like a MIDI one, when really I think they both sound good in their own ways, but just don't mix it, because it's very noticeable halfway through a production. So just stick to your guns, and if all you've got is all you've got at the end of it, then that's that.
Absolutely, and I'm going to involve the chat even more because I said I would, and I'm really sorry I didn't. Chat, what do you all think of stems? Are they intimidating? Do you find you need to do too much surgery to them when you get them? What's the vibe, as they say? And then we'll let them answer that. We'll move on to Erinan's question, which kind of leads on to what we were just talking about. In situations where the usability of the music given by the composer is not to spec, how do you usually go about bringing that up? Oh boy. Okay.
Situation of usability music. Oh my god. It's very. Hi again, mate. Lovely to see you, by the way.
Yes. Hello.
How do you usually go about bringing that up?
Tell them straight. I'm sorry, but you really have to.
Yeah.
It's a commercial thing, so if they can't take it, that's a problem.
Basically, yeah. I have had to say that in situations before, saying like this is not ideal at all, and again, another reason, but it's usually only happens because you weren't brought on early, basically. Basically, you do have to say that like straight very early on, Because the problem is you then one, this is about being honest, and two, it's just about giving your professional feedback, and also I kind of slightly hesitate to put this one in, but I suppose my back of my mind does go to it. It is also slightly about protecting yourself, because after like a couple of months, they're like, "Why is this not sounding like it's supposed to?" You can say, "Well, I did tell you week 2 that this was going to be a challenge." Because it's not stemmed out anywhere near enough. It's a strange file format. It's one musical idea spread over 4 minutes instead of like into chunks with intros and outros with defined sections, so you can craft moments with it. That's, you just have to be honest. It's not a conversation. It's not a conversation I look forward to.
No. And it's everybody's on the same forward moving train. So put it this way, if something goes wrong, you're kind of jeopardizing a lot more people than just yourself in a way. So it's important to just speak up when you need to, without being afraid to say so. It's a
bit like, giving advice to a good friend. Like, they don't want, they're not going to like hearing it, but they'll thank you later.
100%. Thanks, Erin, for that. It's fantastic. So we have less than 20 minutes to blast through this, Thomas. Let's do it. Okay, all right. Right. Liam says, how do you create non-looping music within a game when you have a set amount of music content?
As long as I've got stems, I'll try my best. I'll twist them and warp them and do... And by the way, this is all... hello, Liam, as well. This is also just... orchestration and instrumentation. Like, I have stems playing at different times, so it sounds orchestrated differently. It sounds like the instrumentation changes, and even if it's looping, I still make it sound as if it's progressing as a song in a sort of kind of way, as much as I possibly can. That's why stemming is really important.
Yep.
Well, so also as well, I do. This is sort of like within the realms of like talking to an audio director and asking how much surgery is okay, like modulating the pitch. I've done that. I've taken bits of a melody played by an instrument, cut it in half, and then maybe like taken the other bit, pitched that up, and then moved it over so it sounds like the melody isn't resolving anymore. Like, I've done tons of edits like that. That sort of slightly changed the harmony, but not really enough that you're actually getting into territory where you think you're composing. It's just very, very heavy editing, but you always need to talk to a director or a lead to ask them just how comfortable you are going with that. I've kind of noticed that pitching 3 semitones either side, anything beyond that is starting to get into territory where it does start to sound like garbage. You need really good algorithms for that. And also, I've noticed this, maybe this is just my ears, I've noticed content that was recorded live by a human being seems to be a bit more sympathetic to being pitched either side than MIDI. Only this is a subtle thing, but I have noticed it's a bit more subtle.
Yeah.
They basically just do every sort of music editing trick you have in the book, but just talk to a director first about how much they're comfortable with, because sometimes you do get situations where the composer, if you're editing and it isn't your music, if you're the one that wrote it, you're editing it, then just go as far as you want, basically. But if it's someone else's music, I would definitely have a chat with a director or a lead to just say, look, I've done this. Are you comfortable with how far I've gone with this?
Yep.
Like I've done that before, and usually things have been, yeah, that's fine. What choice do we have? Which is basically usually been the answer.
100%. Let me come back in a second. Did anybody in the chat answer what we were saying asking a minute ago? Let me see. Lewis says 95% soundtrack of the Corrie was Ian Livingstone's stems broken down and completely rearranged by the music editing team.
Shop it.
Okay, we're not trying to destroy composers' music just to disparage that, But it's good to try and make things work where you can, and it's very satisfying when it does. Let me see. Guido, my buddy, how are you doing? Let's have a look. He says, you mentioned that video games is being more in the trench with the team. What soft skills do you think are important, or how do you handle team friction when deadlines are near and everything's on fire?
I've been very lucky in that all the people I've worked with, I've just been, wow, I totally would be childhood friends with you. We just missed out on the childhood part. Like all of them were like, wow, I would hang out with all you people if I didn't have to. It just kind of turned into being really lovely friends. So when you're in the trenches together, you all feel like you're on fire at the same time.
Yeah.
You're all just trying your best. The soft skills I would say is number one for me is empathy. Empathy and just talking good faith with each other. That is always made things better. It's never failed, not even
100%.
once.
And being gentle with each other for sure, because I
Yeah.
know what I said earlier about just tell the composer. It's you can be gentle with them too. But what I find as well is kind of handy is to, if someone has a weird reaction to you, or that they're a bit harsh, just first thing that comes to my mind is think maybe they're having a bad day, and that kind of smooths the waters a bit. Yeah.
Totally. So. Yeah. The soft skills I would say is lots of tech stuff. Learn version control like Perforce. No one told me about how no one told me about the fundamentals of how games were made. And Perforce, version control, GitHub. No one told me about those things. I had to learn them on day one, which was very difficult. I wish someone had told me that first. And you don't need to be masters at them. You just need to be aware that that's how games are made.
Absolutely.
You just have to be aware of that. Wish someone had told me that first. Oh, and 100%. also Reaper. Most studios I've go to, I've used Reaper. And personally, for me, I was an Ableton / Cubase user. But the reason why Reaper is so ubiquitous around so many game developers and development studios is because it's very cheap. Reaper let you go under the hood. There's lots of extensions that involve Wise and other middleware, and you can set a custom skin and custom shortcuts to Reaper. So I remember I encountered Reaper one of my first days of Supermassive Games, and basically we loaded up a Cubase skin and I loaded up a Cubase skin and a shortcut map, and I was flying already.
Absolutely. Sorry, I'm asking a couple of people, could they put their question in the Hangout for Thomas afterwards, because they're, they require a bit of discussion. Excuse me. Joshua asks, who is your support system when you don't understand something or needing answers to troubleshooting?
Depends what the problem is, but usually the problem is musical or technical, and I'll talk to I usually never actually really talk to a composer on a AAA game because they're usually long gone by that time. They've done their thing and they're gone. So for me, it's usually the audio lead, audio director, sometimes game director, because they'll have thoughts and feelings on things. All the time it's a technical thing. It's either someone in the audio team who just knows that area better than me, or it's an audio programmer. Usually just someone else in the audio team, and sometimes leadership. But because it's music, people get people always get emotionally involved in music, no matter what level they're at. Like the game directors always have really big opinions on music, and you usually have to talk with them if you have something really big that's itching them a little bit. And it's like, okay, well, just have a chat.
Yeah, 100%. I think Lewis might be gone at this stage, but we're going to answer his questions in case he's not. Lewis asks, any tips with creating music systems using licensed or hybrid music?
Usually, so far, all my sort of experience with licensed music has actually usually just been solid wave files, because it's something someone wanted a particular piece at a certain place, and it already existed. I think most of the time we've erred on the side of caution and not we've edited it, but we haven't it was a subtractive process, not an additive process. I think you start getting into really strange territory with the licensing stuff. If you make it an additive process as opposed to a subtractive process, or an equal process where you're just editing like an end. But implementing licensed music can be very hard, especially when it's orchestral, because they have a BPM, but the BPM is just normally whatever the conductor was feeling at the time. And that's why orchestral music is so good, because it feels natural. That's a nightmare in Wise, because Wise sort of tacitly sort of implies you should hard quantize everything in your DAW. Which is I think is a bit of a problem, because I think it's a bit unnatural, but it's Wise sort of slightly pushes you within the realm of saying, well, we would be really nice if this was like lightning quantized to the beat. It's like, well, no, It wouldn't be nice.
Yes.
But why sort of slightly encourages that, which is a bit of a shame. I'd rather it didn't.
100%. One of the things I'm trying to get used to in my own time is like custom queues and custom events are fine, but it's like using Synth 1, and like they're a very particular use case for things like that. So it's like I'm trying to really kind of dig deeply into the parts of Wise I don't get to use every day. So okay, and Lewis's other question, we have 2 more questions after that. We're going to try and fit it into 5 minutes. Okay. Lewis, do you ever compose and add your own music and stems to the arrangements just to stretch the music or stems further, or is that frowned upon?
If I'm contracted to a studio, absolutely not. Never in a million years would that happen. No, not a million years. Nope, not a million years would that happen. But if it's my own work, yeah, sure, totally, all the time. Yeah. Why not?
Fab. Dominic, hello. What was an interesting technique of implementation that you did on a specific project, can be redacted, that you're particularly proud of?
To be honest, I can't talk about specifics, but I can say that a lot of the things that I were proud of, they were all for very musical reasons.
Yes.
None of them were for technical reasons. Even though that was kind of cool, they were all like, damn, I managed to actually get the instrumentation for that lineup totally and all this kind of stuff. 100%. It's all purely musical reasons.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dominic. Thank you.
Great question, thank you. And last but not least, one of the coolest people I know, Ben Lipkin, who is a great music designer himself. Could you talk a little bit about ways you've handled transitioning from normal gameplay to cutscenes or linear scripted sequences? Thank you.
It totally depends what it's coming from and what it's going to, which is such a cop-out answer to that.
It's true, though.
I think my decision on this is really dependent on a couple of things: the genre of music, the genre or the style genre of the game, and also, am I going to a scene that I need to be frame accurate on? Because then there's maybe sometimes, well, oh crap, I do need to do an immediate here because it's just not gonna be really good. But if that's the case, I wouldn't do something before that with a beat. I might have a pulse, and I think those two things are different. I think a beat and a pulse are different. I may have a pulse, but it would be music that was that didn't imply its beat terribly hard, so that when I did transition immediately to it, it wouldn't actually feel necessarily like I was interrupting something.
Yeah.
But it's all basically what I'm trying to do is like a fermata, like in a sense. I'm basically trying to sort of like wrench in a fermata, or like
kind of hold it until the player makes a decision, kind of a thing. Is like
basically it's like it's all stuff like that. Basically, just I'm trying to make musical stuff work. That's all.
Absolutely. And we have 4 minutes, guys, because I'm going to make this as five minutes to the next one as I possibly can. Just want to say before we say goodbyes and all that jazz, Thomas, you're amazing. Thank you for spending nearly 90 minutes of your evening with us.
No, not at all.
It's like, whether it's personally or professionally, it's always great to catch up with you.
Likewise.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much to loads of colleagues and friends and students and people who we haven't met yet, which we'll probably see you at a convention soon or something. Thank you all for joining us. It's been real, as I say, and most of you stuck around, so thank you very much. I'd also like to thank Lewis and Greg and Lewis Ball as well for running a tight ship and keeping things going nicely. And they also collabed on questions with us, the AirWiggles team did. So thank you to them for just realizing, it's busy for us too. So, and it's really busy for them. So we're very impressed. Thank you so much. And what else? Our sponsors. I can't list them all out right now, but they're all on the website. Thank you so much. If you want to support AirWiggles, you can support them without spending a penny by sharing and letting your friends know and your colleagues know about the website and the social media. And if you do, however, want to spend something, their merch is fantastic. I have a couple of things on the way myself. And I'm sure they'd be appreciative of it. So thank you all. And you can probably find both of us. I know you could find Thomas on social media for sure. But we're both on different social medias, but also LinkedIn. So and AirWiggles, yes. So there's a couple of questions we didn't get to answer. They'll be put into the Hangout chat. And see you at the next convention near you, I guess. Yeah. So thanks, everyone. Thank you, Thomas.
Toodaloo, toodaloo, toodaloo.
Bye, guys.